Hey, Mama Supper. Hey, Mama Supper. How you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, Mama Supper. Hey, Mama Supper. How you doing? How you?
Okay. Well, this is what happens when you're doing real
I'm in an
TV.
interview. I tried calling you. You didn't call me back. My daughter just wants to know if there's an institution that you can come because her son has a project. Okay. So they just want to come and do some. Okay, for substance use disorder. Pardon? For drugs. Whatever. Okay, she can come around too. Yeah, she can call me. She can call me within an hour. That's your number. Yes. No, it's just for a son. It's a school project. Okay, so no problem. Make sure that I could give you yes, you can. Okay, thanks.
It was a nice ad break. Thank you very much for that, my friend.
Yes, that's an ad.
Thank you so much for downloading this podcast and welcome to it. This is another episode of the Free Ride podcast. I am with an amazing, beautiful soul. Oh my God, this lady, I can speak for hours about her. She's a community builder. She's a community worker. You have given your life to these people of Eldorado Park, my friend.
Yes, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I wake up asking in the morning, is this really the life you chose? What happened here? But yeah, every time I want to give up or every time I say, you know what, I'm so done with this community. I'm done with this. I need just a proper job.
Yeah. Some
way or the other, I get pulled into this. It's just my DNA. Yeah. Once a community activist, always a community.
Always, yeah. Sure. Our guest today is Dereleen James. She is a community activist here in Eldorado Park. She's done amazing stuff. We'll talk about all of that. I want us to start about introducing you to our viewers and our listeners. Who's Dereleen James? You were born and bred here in Eldos?
Eldos girl from the day I opened up my eyes, the day I got to know myself. Dereleen James, the mother of 2, single parent from Eldorado Park.
Big children. And you don't look like it. You're black don't crack. Look at you, girl.
I'm a mama.
People don't know how big your kids are.
Yeah, no, we're not going to put that out there.
Okay. Let's let it go.
That I'm still a spring chicken. Let's
okay.
keep it at that. But yeah, born and bred in Eldorado Park. Who's Dereleen? I'm an activist. I don't think I chose this life for myself. I think this is definitely God ordained, God appointed. I had absolutely nothing. Every day I wake up and I question him and I ask him, how could you do this to me? But having said that, I think this was me turning, not me. This was just life, just using my trials and my battles, and it's actually turned into my passion.
Sure, that's unbelievable. I mean, it's very rare that somebody can say, me serving community is my passion. It's very rare. Where did your first love for activism or being a community worker, where did it all start?
I think just bringing relief to families. I think just bringing relief and just having the ability to bring some comfort and some calmness to families affected, especially by substance use disorder, because I've been there. I've walked that journey. Yeah. So having been there, I always say to myself, if someone has endured something and has walked a certain path, the next person shouldn't have to. We should take our knowledge and what we have learned through our journey in life and pass it on to the next person. And that's exactly what I said I'm going to do. I'm going to use my life to equip and empower our community and try and reach as many people as possible. And really, honestly, Sipho, when I look back, Saturday, I think, marked 9 years since the presidential intervention.
Mm.
And back then, I thought, let me call on the president, the big wigs, and
I remember that.
remember
Yeah.
the minister, and let me call on the MECs. We always say in community, when is the MEC coming?
Mm.
We're not going to stop until the MEC comes. We want the minister. I'm just from a meeting where they said, we want Becky Taylor here. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, if only people realized their own power that they have to effect change, they can be the change that they wish to see. And going back 9 years now, I think I know more than some of the big wigs in terms of substance use disorder, because I've empowered myself and I equipped myself with the needed knowledge. So that's how I find myself here.
How was it like growing up in El Dorado Park? I mean, for many people, they've heard so many stories about Eldos, but how was it growing up for you, a young girl from El Dorado Park?
From Extension 4, I think growing up as a youngster, there's wrongs, but you're not completely conscientized on the extent of it and the impact that the wrongs and the social ills actually has on your life.
Yeah.
I think as a youngster, we just, as young people, priority to us is going out with our friends, getting a boyfriend, getting a girlfriend, what's the next party, getting through school. We're not really that inclined with the realities of our community, and because we don't know who we are, we undermine our ability to affect change. I didn't really pay much to what was happening around me. I think for me it was just hooking up with friends every day after school, just being a teenager.
Yeah.
And for me, I must say, I felt safe in my community. I never ever felt intimidated. We'd hear stories of crime happening, but it's where you were raised, it's where you were born. I felt okay. It was a nice community, friendly. You knew everyone. So yeah.
And school? Where did you go to school?
I had primary school in El Dorado Park at Heringgraad. I was at Silver Oak Secondary for a year, and then I schooled the remainder of my secondary education. I completed at Christian Botha, CJB, in Bosmont. Yeah.
Yes, I know CJB. Yeah. Oh, you used to go to Bosmont.
Yeah, they used to call it a school for the high bucks back in the day. Yeah. So that's where I went.
My wife went to CJB also.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know which year, but yeah, she's told me. I just
forgot. Yeah.
So, growing up in Eldos, were you involved in sports or like arts, culture?
I was that learner that when it came to sports, I had a runny tummy.
Oh.
Or I was sick. Or I had a throat infection.
It wasn't for you.
Or my mom had to write a letter saying that she can't come to school because she was sick. I was that person. I was the person when the principal or the bell rang and it was time for preparation and choosing the athletes for the sports, and everyone needed to participate. I was the learner who would hide in the girls' toilet and just sit in the toilet for an hour. Yeah, hiding. I was not into running.
Yeah, it wasn't your thing.
I wasn't about to lose and be okay with it. I was so loser. I still am. And I knew I can't run. I can't. Yeah. So let me stay away from the track. Yeah, someone's either going to have to pull me to win, but I wasn't going to try. I wasn't going to attempt the tracks. So yeah, I was that person. Not active at school at all. The most I did growing up as a teenager was ballroom dancing.
Really?
Yes.
Ha!
I enjoyed ballroom. That was very graceful. It's a sport. You don't have to run. You're not sweating. You're not,
It's a smart sport.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to dress up.
Yes, you got to dress up. I think that's what appealed to me.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of ballroom. I did karate for about 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah?
And the sensei came to me and he screamed at me, and I think he just grabbed my fists, and I came home and I said, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, it was too hard on me.
He screamed at me. And that was the end of karate as well. So I stuck to ballroom, and that was the most that I've ever done in terms of activities.
Yeah.
I still battle with the gym. I think that explains it. So
yeah. So let's get back to this community of El Dorado Park. It went through a very tough tough period of like gangsterism and drug abuse. I mean, that's why you are involved in helping the young people that are in this area, and you've got a personal story of how the drugs affected you and your family. Are you able to talk about that?
Yes, I am. And I think I speak about it now, no longer. Back then, when I raised my challenges and what I was going through, it was from a space of feeling hopeless, despondent, not knowing what to do. It was from a very desperate space. I'm just screaming and shouting. I just need someone to come with a solution and help. And today, when I reflect back on my journey, I no longer speak as that desperate mom, but I speak as someone who has learned so much, someone who's empowered. And I no longer focus on the chaos that had happened in my household. My approach is more to empower people to understand who they are and what they can contribute to society without a title. And that is the book that I'm busy authoring now, Without a Title. I was looking for a title. And then the one day I just said, why don't I just name the book Without a Title? Because a lot of people come to me and they assume that I have this very high position, that I am probably controlling, that I'm probably just reaching out for my phone and calling the president and saying, hey, Cyril,
But you did, though.
can you make it happen?
No, but you did do it. You called Zuma into Eldos.
I think it's perseverance and it's determination. I remember his advisor saying to me, Bongani saying back then, your woman president was supposed to fly out of the country. But every morning and whenever as his team, we grabbed on like the newspaper, we turned on the radio, we turned on the television. There you were. How did you do this? The desperate mother from El Dorado Park.
Yes.
And I said that when something is authentic, the universe will just work in such a way where, you know, something's got to give.
In your favor, yeah.
When you are consistent, when you are persistent, when you don't give up the dream, or whatever it is that you need at a specific, sometimes we become despondent. Just carry on. At some point, something's got to give. And that is what happened. Something gave, and there was the presidential intervention. And going back, you asked me to share a little bit about my journey. My journey was chaos. I'm sure many people that would listen to this podcast will know what it is to live with someone that's addicted to drugs. It's screaming outside, banging on your windows. It is waking up in the morning and not knowing if you're going to have a kettle to make a cup of tea, not knowing if the geezer's still going to be outside for you to bath with. It's waking up not knowing if you're going to have a blow dryer to do your hair, or if your outfit that you took out for work is still going to be on the chair.
What?
That is how uncontrollable your life becomes. It becomes uncontrollable. It becomes unmanageable. I made an appointment with you today to meet you at 12. When you're a parent living with someone who's affected by substance use disorder, your life becomes so unmanageable that I hope I'll be able to make it for Sipo's appointment. Because anything can happen. In the morning, there can be a fight, there can be an arrest. You'd have to be out at school. Principal just called someone's son selling drugs. That's what happened to me. Despite many attempts of rehabilitation, okay, fine, you need to move your son into a different area. He'll be rehabilitated. Take him to a private school. That's going to help. And I thought, okay, I've got nothing to lose. Let me make a loan. And you take him to a private school, and days later, you get called, say, the transport that's transporting them to school gave him drugs to sell at the school, and they please come and fetch your child and remove your child. This is after having tried several schools in the El Dorado Park community where the principals will say, a drug ad? No, I don't want that problem at my school. And this is why today I'm so pleased to say that I'm part of policy formation in terms of how to protect people affected by substance, because we can never disconnect our youth from education, because they become then seasoned criminals.
It's so
and
true.
This is why I do what I do today. To take my journey, my son was expelled. I couldn't find a place for him to learn. And instead of keeping him connected to education while sending him to rehab, that would have been a better link, way of recovery. But you have to disconnect from education to get rehabilitated. It can never be.
Yes, the day.
So those are the challenges that today, because of my journey, that I am now afforded an opportunity to look into the policy of education What does it say? How do we protect these learners? When you find learners, like with my son, they'd call him out and embarrass him in front of everyone. Obviously, he's going to want to be the clown and not go to class. And they call him out and they say, Sipo on the intercom has been caught with drugs. Please, can he come to the office? Whatever. You know, that sort of thing.
It destroys the kid
It destroys the kid even further. Today in the National Drug Master Plan, it speaks to rights-based, you know, the Constitution protecting these children's rights. What are we doing at school? Are we adding to the problem? Do we know what to do? Do we have a code of conduct in place? You know, do parents sign it? Those types of things. So that has been my journey that I now use to effect and implement change, not only in El Dorado Park, because I serve on the Central Drug Authority. That's a national body. We report directly to Parliament and to the Minister. So we affect change on that level. So I am pleased to say that that's the turnaround from everything that has happened. 9 years later, this is what I'm doing as a result of the chaos that I had to endure with my son.
9 years later. My goodness.
Yeah.
You know, congratulations, by the way. I remember seeing your pictures and stuff on social media. You were like preparing us about your appointment.
So excited.
And then you're going to go to Parliament. And then you're at Parliament. And then the next thing you're there. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I mean, I remember the discussions you and I have had. And just to see how far you've come, like, friend, I just get like goosebumps. Like, I'm so proud of you.
Even me, when you're sitting down, you're getting so excited, you're making me teary-eyed, because it's like I always say with my appointment on the CDA, 1 minute I cut out a newspaper clipping way back in 2012, 2013. And the newspaper clipping was relatively old because that was an old board. And I said, one day I'm going to get a meeting with these people. And I think it was like 13 people's faces on there, because they do the country, they do policies, they do monitoring. They must ensure that our country, you know, steer our country towards a South Africa free of substance abuse. And I said, I want to meet with these people that sits at national level. And today, I am those people.
You sit there.
I was like, wow.
And how does it feel, like, looking at it from that point of view? Is it different looking from outside in, and now that you are inside, you are looking outside?
Now that I'm inside, I realize that it's a mammoth, complex task at hand.
It's not as easy.
It's not as easy as what me back in the day would think it is. And I understand, back in the day, I just thought, when it comes to drug abuse and substance, I need SAPS here. I need, where's the police? Where's the police? The second department I would call on would be Department of Social Development. And I think that's as far as my thoughts went in terms of help, a rehab, SAPS, catch the dealers and put my child in a rehab. But now that I'm serving on the Central Drug Authority, I understand and I see that without the collaboration of South African Revenue Services, that does lifestyle audits on people who's selling the drugs. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yes.
So if SAPS cannot catch you, we can then call on SARS to conduct a lifestyle audit.
Yes.
You know, and you will have to come up with where you got all the money to buy this lavish house and these lavish cars.
Yeah.
Is that being done? Are our communities empowered with that knowledge that they can, on the SARS website, there's actually a link there where you can say report and you can put there, this is the person.
Really?
Are we aware of that? Yes, it's there. Then secondly, when it comes to Department of Labor, do we realize that that is part of aftercare, Department of Labor? Do we have those departments linked to rehabilitation centers in terms of aftercare when they come back? Years programs, year jobs. This is where we feed these people into so that they don't go back, so that they don't fall back. Our borders, what is the border controls? What is in these private landing strips? How are we controlling them? Are we having meetings with them? I spoke about the Department of Education. What is their policy when it comes to substance use disorder? How are they protecting learners? How are learners staying connected to educating? How are we empowering our teachers to identify a learner in the morning that is not wearing uniform, where I can say that that learner is probably high. This is why they're wearing a red tie this morning. Their sense of awareness is completely out of it. And I'm not going to chase that learner home, but this learner needs intervention.
And how do you do that?
How do you do that? Are they empowered? When you see a learner in the classroom and you know that the pinky nail is long, is that a sign where a teacher can pick up? You are just cleaning your dacha and you are just kicking out like, all around the walls. Yeah, that's why that nail, it serves a purpose.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
Yes, when you look in their books.
And then it does that, then it goes there, then it goes there.
It has a multiple, it has a dual function. This nail over here.
Yeah.
So how do we pick it up in the classrooms? Are our teachers skilled to
So
pick it
that
up?
is common.
That is common. How do you pick up a learner that is selling drugs at school? Sometimes they wear red shoelaces in the shoes. So that he's a seller. He sells cigarettes. He sells. There are signs on their uniforms where you can identify who's the sellers. Are our teachers aware of that? There's just so many things that we can look at. The broken CD covers. I remember finding in my son's room broken CD, and I couldn't think, what the hell's up with the broken CD? All my CDs are out and whatever. And broken CD covers mean someone's doing lines. Someone is snorting on there. They use that.
Yes.
The remote control of the TV that's open.
Yeah.
People who are on TikTok are always going deeper into stuff, opening things, fixing things. Those are early signs and symptoms. Are our parents educated and equipped with the knowledge on how to pick up the early signs and symptoms of addiction? And that is my role today, to equip community, enlighten and guide government on best practices, what happens on the ground. And there's just so much to do. So today, 9 years later, I realize that it's not only SAPS and DSD that needs to play a role. So when I say to you, being inside now, I realize what a mammoth task it is. Going back to where you and I come from, the establishment of local drug action committees. Every mayor must form and appoint a local drug action committee. We've had one appointed in Joburg some year and a half ago. And are they active?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. What is the state of our problem, especially when it comes to drug abuse in South Africa?
The increased rate in crime, it affects our economy, number one. If you look at all the traffic lights that's being cut and the cords, the copper being stolen and exchanged, if you do an overview on who does that, you'd find sometimes it's most of your substance use, people suffering from substance. And we no longer say druggies or nyalpe heads. The terms that we use is substance use disorder because it is a disease. It's classified. This National Drug Master Plan now states that we have moved away from thinking it's a moral, how can I say, like you're uneducated or you come from a poor community, it's got anything to do with class or race. It doesn't have anything to do with that. We're saying that substance use disorder is a disease. It's a mental disease and it requires the treatment that patients get with other mental diseases. But people still think that if you are using drugs, you must be arrested.
Okay. Yeah, they punish you
instead of rehabilitating you.
Yes.
That is still the thinking. So right now, never mind even all the departments that I've mentioned, how do you change public knowledge and how do you equip the public to understand that this is how you need to deal with it? Where a mother would say to me, okay, fine, so he smashes the house and now he must go to rehab for that. I'm saying yes and no. I'm saying he smashed the house as a result of him being on a substance that is mind altering.
Yes.
If he was in his normal frame of mind, he wouldn't have done that.
Yes.
But his mind has been altered, so he's not thinking correctly. yes, we open up, we go via the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system then assigns a social worker to the case. The social worker does an evaluation, and based on the outcome of that evaluation, the magistrate then grants a court order into rehab. So the person is detained while undergoing rehabilitation.
And losing out on school.
And losing out on school, losing out on work, being fired, being put off in a worse off situation.
So, in other words, it's considered a disease, but people are being treated like you're a criminal.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, you've got a mental illness.
Meanwhile, you've got a mental illness. Yes.
I got a question.
Yes.
So now, since the schools can't take these kids that have this problem in because they're scared that it might spread, or that might then put the picture of gangsterism at schools. If they don't have a program for that, and they can't be taken to jail because, I mean, it's going to get worse there, where do we then take them apart from rehab? Because okay, cool. School is supposed to teach me how to maintain myself as a person. It's not there to take me away from my problems that I have at home, socially or whatever. So now, what do we then do with these kids, making sure that they learn something? It might not be in a school environment because they're still scared, or they've built a big wall around people pointing fingers and laughing.
Okay. So each case is very unique. The first thing we do is we would assess the learner. And sometimes, I always say that when you go to the doctor, when you fall ill you don't just go straight to hospital. You always start off at the doctor. The doctor will check and then you'll go to hospital. With a substance case, we have to assess the situation first. This learner that is using substance, is this learner using for 2 months, 2 weeks, 3 years, 5 years? Has he just started? Is he just experimenting? What is this learner using? And what is the effect of this drug on this learner? Is this learner using dacha, tuk, nyaupe, heroin? What is this person using? Based on the duration of use, based on the type of drug, based on the circumstances at home, we then form a plan in terms of an intervention. If the learner has just been using, like a lot of the cases I've been getting at the Yellow Ribbon Foundation, if the learner has just been using weed for the last 6 months, guaranteed that learner is just doing it 14-year-old to fit in because everyone else is doing it. It's not a chronic drug user or anything like that. That learner then comes to an aftercare program in the community. If there's one, we link the learner to an aftercare program. We call in the learner's parents. We ensure that the learner then gets up to date with their schoolwork. We educate the learner in terms of what the drug can do. We put the learner in a positive environment after school, but it's based on, is it early stages of addiction? If the person is at dependency stage, right, meaning I've lost my job, I've dropped out of school, I've sold all my clothes, I'm living on the streets now, I've got no money, I have to steal, my body cramps, I can't do without it, I get spasms, my stomach cramps, even if I wake up every morning and I don't want to use, I have to steal, I have to use just so that I can stay alive.
Jesus. And there are cases like that.
Many cases. And this is why when you see all the nyaupe users under the bridges and in our communities, my heart breaks for them, because those are the people that we frown upon, and we don't realize that they come out of ordinary, normal homes. They have families as well. And the hospitals have turned them away because go, you are nyaupe addict.
You are fail.
You
fail,
dirty.
you dirty. You are nothing.
We look at the external, what they look like, and we judge them. And we don't realize that that's probably the most intelligent. That can be our next president.
Yeah.
And we don't have the facilities to actually support this person, because by now, the same way that we approached the HIV AIDS pandemic years ago, remember, I thought if I sit next to you right now, I'm going to be HIV positive.
Yeah.
If I'm going to share your drink from this cup now, I'm going to be HIV positive. I don't want a child that's That's HIV positive in my child's classroom.
Yeah.
And the school doesn't want a drug addict here at school. It's not good for us.
Taboo. Yeah.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
It took a mammoth educational campaign. I think it was Soul City back in the day.
Yes.
Remember?
Yeah.
And we were all encouraged to go and get tested, know your HIV status, and we did away with all this taboo talk and all the myths and everything. And eventually there was a red ribbon to create awareness. And every day up until now, we still say today is International Day Against HIV. What are we doing when it comes to substance? Do we have similar programs? Do we have similar campaigns on that level?
It's so true.
Are we aware of the yellow ribbon as an awareness symbol? 26th of June, now in 2 months' time. It's International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking. Are we aware that how do we break the silence and stigma? Do people frown upon families suffering with substance use disorder? You a hopeless mother. You come from a poor family. You were probably poor. This is why you're using Yaupe. You don't have a house. You don't have a job or whatever. What is our reaction as civil society towards people suffering with substance use disorder?
It's so painful. I mean, I remember seeing these guys. They were doing what they call a Bluetooth.
Yes.
I couldn't believe such thing exists.
Yes.
It's like these guys, the one injected whatever stuff was in that needle. He goes,
someone else's blood.
then he takes, he passes so this one got high, then he draws blood from him, then he gives the next guy his blood.
Yes.
And then the same thing. It's like,
yes. And can you
blood
imagine?
transfusion.
Can you imagine you how not only yes, we understand they want to share the high, but the other risks that is attached that comes with needle sharing.
Yeah. And if you look at them here, it's like needles everywhere.
Yes.
It's so bad. And
I too, Sipo, couldn't understand that when I just heard about that from the first time. But afterwards, when I understood what heroin does to your body and the extent of your need for it to live, exchanging blood with someone, it's because I just want to live today and I don't want to be in pain.
So you take this thing to break away from the pain that you're feeling, maybe emotionally. Then you end up in physical pain that you have to keep feeding.
Exactly.
That's a jail.
it's an addictive pain.
Exactly. So this is why we are saying you need medical treatment for this.
And medical aid doesn't cover the majority of the stuff.
Exactly the same way I always said with HIV/AIDS. Remember in the beginning stages, you couldn't find a job.
Yes.
They wanted to know you must disclose your HIV status.
Correct. Yeah.
Medical aids also wouldn't take you on. There was no programs to support people affected by HIV. Exactly the
You
same.
couldn't get a life cover with
You
HIV.
couldn't get a life cover. There were so many restrictions.
Even when you have AIDS, you couldn't get a life cover.
Exactly.
Now you can.
Now you can.
Yeah.
Because you are managing it, you're on the right, because of the noise that was made, because of the education that was made. Now people better understand it. And now people are actually able to say, you know what? Here's cover for people affected. When are we going to see cover for people affected by substance use disorder? When are we going to see the scientists and the doctors gather together to say, you know what? This is how we're going to wean you off. When are we going to see it on a larger scale? Because so many of our youth is affected by substance use disorder. And I always say that, okay, no problem. Yes, you can. Okay, thanks.
It was a nice ad break. Thank you very much for that, my friend.
Yes, that's an ad break. I get
So
all
people
sorts
come
of
to
things,
you like,
hey,
like she's like, for whatever, my daughter. So people just come with their problems to you, like.
Because it's raining, maybe that's how come there's only been one person here while you're standing here. But on the usual, I don't even park outside. I go inside. My house is like the local, I don't know what to call it, community center.
But you see, you remind me of people like, those women who back in the day during apartheid, they always saved comrades, they always hid comrades, they Mam Sisulu, all of these people, because it's women like you who are like building communities. It's unbelievable, you know, and I can see it. I mean, I've seen your journey and I've seen a lot of what you do. Your passion is unbelievable, my friend, and keep it up, man. You know, it's like,
Thank you.
and we have such a big problem in this country, and you went up against lolly lounges up in here. You got people busted. Like, I don't know how.
It was a mouthful.
Yes.
I was a real. I don't know. I don't know what was driving me. I think determination, and I think also the fact that I said to myself, and I always say this in all my interviews, that we start fighting too much too late. We start fighting when it's almost too late. We always start fighting. We toy after something has happened. We burn after something has happened. We take to the streets. We write letters. We want to see the minister after something has happened. We need to become proactive, and we need to start doing more. Back then, for me, it was, I could see this child going 6 foot under. I was told by doctors I'm going to lose him. His weight, he was deteriorating. There was nothing. He was skin and bone. And I could see him disappearing right in front of me. He was no longer that handsome boy that I had given birth to. He was just someone else.
Oh my word.
I was so afraid of him. I would look at him. There was a time when I would open up the front door and I wouldn't want to make eye contact with him because it would just break my heart.
My God.
So I would open up the door and I'd put my head down and I'd walk around and I'd even speak to him. But just looking at him, I would realize I am losing you. And I wasn't prepared to lose this child. And that is what drove me to get up out of my bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, put on a balaclava, put on tackies, put on a scarf up until here, and walk the streets of Eldos.
What?
And walk the streets of Eldos looking for my 14-year-old son.
My God.
The other day I was saying in another interview, I remember the guy around the corner, he's now passed on. I'm not going to say rest in peace, unfortunately. But he was selling drugs to my son. And I went there the one day and I said, every time you're going to sell to him, I'm going to come and perform. And I said to him, and he said to me, Vrou, ek gaan jou skiet. And he took me and he threw me against his wall. I was on his stoop and I was banging the burglar gate for him to open. I was making, open, I'm not leaving here. And he came out and he took me and he pushed me off his patio. And there I went flying and I got up again and I went back to him again. I said, I'm not leaving here. And he took his gun and he said, ek gaan jou skiet. Ek gaan jou skiet, jy gaan nie kom geraas maak hier by my nie. And you are on my property illegally. And I said to him, you can rather shoot me, but I'm not going to live this miserable life with a child tormenting me day in and day out. I'm not going to be tormented every morning, 2 o'clock, to open up the door for a 5 rand. I'm not going to have someone throwing plates against my door for the rest of my life. I'm not going to be called in at work every day asking, why haven't you been at work the past 2 days? And it's the same problem year in and year out. I'm not going to turn back at the traffic light every time I attempt going out with one of my friends because my mom phones because my son has just been performing at home again. I am not going to stop living. But if it means you have to rather take me out now than for me to endure a life of this caliber, then so be it. So you're rather going to take me out of the game, but I'm not going to settle for the life that I'm living right now. And eventually, none of the drug dealers, and there he's going, he's off to work. Eventually, none of the drug dealers wanted to sell to him. Because
they knew.
Because your mother is such a problem. Because your mother is such a problem.
Yo, fully recovered.
Fully recovered.
How
On
long?
his way, working at one of the Debonair's steers there at Viking. He's working quite happy, goes to work every day, did his matric at the age of 21.
Yes.
Yeah. From years of chaos, saying I'm going to smash the house, throwing us with food, banging the doors, smashing my house. And there's working. I'm not saying that our life is rosy. We don't have fights. Of course we have fights. Of course we have arguments. But
It's not what it was.
Not what it was.
You went through hell, my friend. I can't believe it as a parent, as a single mom, raising a boy. And you have to endure all of this on your own.
And there's my mom who's 82. There's my daughter. He would steal from her, and I would like, are you still complaining just for a pair of cavelas or whatever? There's like bigger things. Mom, it's my competition at school. I don't feel like going. Can't you see what I'm going through? So she never had her mother present in anything where she went, because I was I was addicted to his addiction.
Ha!
I was addicted to his addiction until I understood this addiction, and I needed to heal first. I needed to become stronger. I needed to empower myself and then look into it from a sober perspective and not an emotional perspective. And only then could I support him and not to say, leave the drugs, because I was then mirroring wellness. Before I was like him, I would sleep all day because I'm depressed, wouldn't wash my hair, just not socialize, borrow money that I don't have for rehabs and for private schools. Who does that? People who use drugs do that.
So
I was doing that.
You're an addict.
I was an addict.
Of his addiction.
I was addicted to my son's addiction. And my behavior showed that. I was screaming, I was erratic, I was edgy, I was frustrated, I was everything but, just a calm mother. And eventually I had to get a grip, understand what I'm dealing with, accept the fact that I cannot wish it away, that I cannot change him. It needs to come from him. I can love, I can support, I can guide. But I also needed to make sure that this home becomes a home that is conducive for recovery. And we cannot all be screaming.
Yo, my friend, you just gave me so much goosebumps. Like, I think the love you have for your kids, like a love a mother has for the kids and what you've had to endure. And today you can stand and look at him and be proud that he's overcome it. It's like unbelievable. I wanted to talk about, remember that trip of ours when we went to KwaZulu-Natal?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, it was really amazing.
That road trip. And I mean, that's where you and I started really talking, I think, not broadly, but we started engaging about how our communities need help. I mean, do we have enough rehab centers? And what do you think we need? Like in Gauteng or in Johannesburg, for instance, is there enough rehab centers for all the townships that we have?
Now, let me say this to you. At one stage, and it could have been easily, maybe even 6 or 5 months ago, where I honestly thought we don't have enough rehab centers. But the more you expose yourself to evidence-based practices, the more you go out there and you explore and you equip yourself with knowledge, the more you find other ways and you see other workable ways of rehabilitation. In Cape Town, we came across an outpatient center. And this guy explained it so nicely where he says, with rehabilitation, we remove you out of the community. And of course, you're going to be doing well. Because you're not there. Of course, you're going to be recovering well. We're putting you in a box.
Yeah.
We're sending you far away. What happens the first, second day when you come back?
Relapse.
You relapse. And we equip you with all the tools and whatever. And I'm not saying rehabilitation out of the area doesn't help.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying there are various options on the table for us to explore based on the person's assessment.
Okay.
Do you understand?
It has to be an individual case.
It needs to be an individual plan.
It can't be a blanket approach.
With substance use disorder, there's no blanket approach.
Yeah.
So for some people, they may need very well, and they will dictate to us, do I have to go away? Because there are other people who, yes, they rock bottom, but with the everyday needed support, where family means a lot to you. And as part of rehabilitation, staying connected to family, that's one of the healing processes, because you want to work on the relationship.
For sure.
But it's dependent on the situation. So here's an outpatient treatment center in the community. in the Western Cape that I saw where even I think there was more than 100 users, and most of them were heroin users, would go there every morning. They would check in at 9 o'clock and they would spend the day there, and at 5 o'clock they would go back home, and tomorrow they would come again, and tomorrow the next day they would come again, and they would come for their methadone or whatever it is to wean them off. They would come for their support groups. They would come for whatever it is. They would get booked into hospital. They would see the doctor if they've been diagnosed with hepatitis, because using drugs, this is the other thing, we don't do education on hepatitis. And it's one of the diseases that you get, your liver gets affected and impacted as a result of drugs. So let's say I'm fully recovered, I'm not fully recovered, I'm a rehabilitated drug addict, but now I'm left with hepatitis. Now I'm HIV positive.
Jesus.
Because I was sharing needles. So people are saying, no, we don't want the needle exchange program because that's encouraging drug use.
I saw a needle exchange program. This guy was telling me about what they did in Holland, or Netherlands. Similar program where drug addicts actually come to a clinic and they get needles.
They have that in the Western Cape.
And then this guy told me this about 5-6 years ago. And I remember thinking, people are going to think he's mad.
Absolutely.
Because now, and he was saying, he says, think about it, in Hillbrow, for instance. In Hillbrow, imagine how many people you can help because they use one needle 20 times.
Absolutely.
20 times they use one needle. So imagine if you access needles.
And we don't decide for them.
Yeah.
The thing is this, we haven't used drugs, yet we want to decide for people.
Yeah.
And after having listened to dozens of testimonies in the Western Cape, where obviously they were given the needles too. And I was like, okay, so where do you discard of these? No, we have to take our needles back, and then they give us the new needles.
Okay. Now the education of not sharing
comes. So if you get your needles, you get your 4 needles. You take your 4 needles back, and then you'll get 5 needles. But because you're going to a center which is a positive and a safe space, you're getting educated, you're getting fed, you're getting trusted. All of them. Eventually, instead of you going twice a week for needles, you now go once a week. You use less because people are no longer judging you. And as you're using less, eventually you start weaning yourself because on the odd day you are now coming into the support group. And you are, because we're getting you there because you're going to fetch your needles. And guess what? You're staying healthy. You're not picking up any diseases as well. And that's a plus. But us as activists, and I'm not saying everyone must agree, but we have to start respecting people's rights. And giving them as many options. And we have to start. I mean, if someone had to tell me years back about the needle exchange program, I would have said, hell no, that's demonic. Goes against my belief system. This isn't what Jesus wants. You need to go to church and you need to sort yourself out, and that is it. Because we are so inclined to doing what we think is right. But it's so amazing for me.
It works, the program.
Having, this is why I speak about growth, having grown. It's just, there's absolutely nothing compares to being open and broad-minded. There's nothing that grows you more than listening and taking in and saying, I've got nothing to lose by just listening and applying my mind to this. Let's see. And that's how we create what I call recovery capital in communities. By not saying that program rehabs don't work, outpatient don't. It all works. It's a basket. You get to choose your outfit. Absolutely.
That's so profound. Let's talk about the Yellow Ribbon Foundation. You established that with the community around here, and the whole idea was to assist young people and and do you assist parents as well? Because obviously with your experience as a mother, surely there's like thousands of mothers around here who are crying.
Yeah. So what we had a group called Once a Week Sharing Without Shame,
Okay.
because of the stigma
Hmm.
that's attached to substance use. I don't want to talk out. I don't want to tell my friends. I don't want to tell my family. They're going to judge me. They're going to say I must have him arrested. I don't have it in my heart to have him arrested, whatever. I started a group called Sharing Without Shame that happened once a week as a result of my employment in the city that fell through the cracks. But as we speak, I'm busy resetting up the center. I was just there yesterday. I've put in the ceilings. We've moved.
Oh, you moved?
Yeah, I've moved.
Okay.
We're around the corner here. So I'm setting up the Yellow Ribbon Foundation again. We still deal with cases from schools. I do school referrals. I work with the 9 high schools in El Dorado Park, but I get a lot of resistance from principals as well, because principals believe that if you're a drug addict, you're not coming to my school. There's still that approach. And I'm saying, no, you need to call in the social worker from the Department of Education to do a psychosocial report first on the learner. On the learner's circumstances at school, at home, why they're using, is his father using, dad using, all of that. We cannot just disadvantage someone. So number one, I work with the 9 high schools. We assess the learners that comes into the program. You know, even when it comes to bullying and gangs, we see how does the learner walk? Do they have that little hop, like a gangster
Like
walk?
a toti, yeah.
So we check that out as part of our assessment. Do they have tattoos, like when they write on their bodies, Sipo was here, Rebel King, we go through their books and we see the messages that's been written there that people don't pay attention
And
to.
messages are there.
And messages are there where you have like 5 names. Do they have groupings? Are they belonging to a grouping or to a gang? So if you see a repetition of that names in the book, on the school bag, on the pants, it's written, you always write down your name and your crew's name. Do you notice that growing up? It's always your name, it's C, it's D, it's whatever. And is there a certain symbol next to it, aligned, that we can say, this is a gang in the making?
You start seeing the signs before it even becomes.
Yes. This is at school. This is a gang in the making. This is how they walk. This is their ties. All their ties reach the second button of their shirt.
Yes.
This is how they dress. What is their conduct? We just monitor and observe every day at the center.
Sometimes the other one, this leg pant is longer than the other one.
And the other one is up. Sometimes it's like below the bum. And the bum and it's tight, and it doesn't even look like uniform, but it's uniform. But anyway, and an organization, we don't focus on behavior the first couple of days. We don't do the pointing. We don't say tuck in your shirt. We don't say stop doing that, because that's what happens in the classroom and that's what happens at home. So what we want is for the learner just to show up every day first and feel accepted as is. And once you have the learner showing up without the learner being forced, there's trust, and we can then work with the learner.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, I think, friend, you and I can talk for hours.
We can.
And I need to release you. And obviously, I want us to have another chat some other time again. I think the issue of drugs in South Africa, it's like a pandemic.
It is.
It's just like the president declared the state of national disaster on issues of gender-based violence.
Wait, I got one more question.
Yeah.
Like, okay, how do we as an adult take a kid away from what's shown on TV and what seems to be cool, and it's not cool at all? Obviously the drug taking, and because when you ask some of these parents, okay, this child now is like, what am I gonna do? They sit on the TV. That's what they put out there. There's nothing I can do. How do you then, have them have the freedom of watching TV, but at the same time, how do you take them away from those?
That is a very complex and a very difficult question. And unfortunately with that, setting boundaries in your home, and this is one of the things that I learned where I too went wrong. So I too needed to take some form of responsibility for my son's addiction and his behavior at some stage. Because growing up, we didn't have growing up in my home. When I was growing up, I knew that we needed to have dinner around the table every night, and we sat together as a family eating. I knew that I needed to be home by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I knew that I needed to wash my socks. I knew that I needed to shine my shoes for school. I knew that I needed to wash my hair ribbons. I had all of those chores in place, right? Which kept me away. I knew that at 8 o'clock, when the round ball came up with the colors and I heard a certain sound, I didn't have to be told to go to bed. I knew that that was bedtime, because those were the boundaries that were put in place, and those were the rules at home. But as your modern new age parents, we give too much too soon, and we don't have rules in place from a very young age. We want to install those rules when it's too late. We want to say to them, make up your bed, when from the age of 0 to 16 you had a helper. This person doesn't know that, and it almost feels as if it's a punishment to them now, because you have always been making up my bed, and now you expect me to make up my bed at the age of 16. So what us as parents instill and how we raise our kids from a very young age will determine our ability to enforce rules at home, in terms of, in this house, we don't watch movies of this. If it says 0 to 13 to 16, we adhere to that. We're able to enforce our voices at home. It's not, they know that when mommy says this is what I'm going to do. But in today's day and age, our kids have cell phones from the age of 9, and we justify that. And yes, they can have cell phones, but they have those cell phones, they go to bed with them, they lay under the blankets with them, and they chat until whatever time. And we feel bad when we take it away from them.
When is the right age to have a child have an actual SIM card? Because I think that's the only time it becomes a problem, when you now can talk to other people. Whereas there's other kids that are genuinely just playing games on the phone. It's not really about chatting to random people.
I don't think, like I'm saying, for me personally, I cannot dictate to any family member or any person what is the right or wrong age. Someone can be 30 years old, and a cell phone can be destructive to their behavior as a result of the way they were raised and the community that they grew up. Someone can be 10 years old and be 10 times more responsible than a 30-year-old with a cell phone, purely because they had rules and regulations and family time and the bond at home. So for me, it's what happens, what that child gets exposed to all the time, what they see. Nobody just becomes a rapist or an abuser overnight. Someone must have been abused to become an abuser. Someone must have been raped to rape someone else. There's always trauma involved. Even when we assess drug addicts, why they are using, we always assess by what are the 4 reasons for someone. It's either generic, it's either community environment, inability to affect change, where I feel I'll never get a job, I'll never look at my community, I can't. How do we change that? Hopelessness, yes. Past guilt, hurt and trauma. I was raped, so I'm using drugs because it numbs, it takes my mind off it. There's always a reason. So to leave the drugs is one thing, but how do I then help you to get over the trauma that you experienced as a child growing up? And hence we are saying it is a disease. It's in depth. It needs professional help. It needs medical attention. It needs all of us. It needs this podcast. It needs the education. It needs Sipho speaking about it after today. It needs you speaking about it. It needs everyone just to create awareness, because substance abuse is killing. And yes, more your poorer, disadvantaged communities, Soweto, Eldorado Park, it's killing us. And we don't realize it. Not only families affected, it's killing us. How many pick-it-ups are being stolen? How much money is in the city paying on pick-it-up bins? Because what is it being used for? How many times aren't our robots out? Look at the cable theft. How rife is cable theft? Look at all the other things. Our economy in our communities, people don't want to invest here because of the high crime rate. What drives all the crimes that's being committed in our areas? For someone to go out and hijack someone and blatantly point a gun at someone, if you must test that hijacker when you get to the police station, you'll find that that person was on tick, because it makes you feel like Spider-Man. So
Sure.
when we are saying we are not affected by substance abuse, that means you are not on this planet.
Yeah, because now you're thinking, I live in my house, wherever, I'm safe, I'm cool, I'm gated area, whatever. But then you still have to drive on those roads.
Absolutely.
Still have to, you
Still
know?
affected by the power outage, your business, your money, everything. You still impacted some way or the other. But because you haven't been educated on how big the impact is and what it means and what it does and the impact on communities, we don't understand the role of economic development, the role of sports and recreation, the role of SAPS, the role of DSD, the role of community involvement, the role of everyone just speaking out. Same approach like we took with HIV.
Sadly, though, I think in Johannesburg, the city of Joburg could have done a lot more. I mean, it's just my view. I know they've got one rehab center there,
Golden Harvest.
the Golden Harvest. But hearing what you are saying, the collaboration of departments such as economic development in the city of Johannesburg, social development, you name all of them, the collaboration to fight this problem we have, they are not doing it. JRA is not doing it.
JRA, you know?
JRA is
JMP.
losing robots, but they're not
Exactly.
saying no.
What is their contribution? Are they in all their in transport? Do they have at least contributing in terms of awareness campaigns in all their buses,
They're not.
at all their stations? Are
Yeah.
they saying this is a drug-free environment? Are they creating that awareness? Because someone's going to say, what do you expect transport to do? How do they curb it? Are they having campaigns that says, do not drive when high, when drunk? Are we looking at the liquor board, you know, and all of that? The roads, that speaks to roads.
They're
That's
not
all
doing
they think.
anything.
They're not collaborating. They're thinking it belongs to one department, which is health and DSD. And then you find health and DSD. What are you guys doing? Because you have your LDAC there, but they're not capacitated. They've been appointed by the mayor. But who did you nominate to sit in those positions? Because they don't have a clue on the National Drug Master Plan and their role.
Yes. Just people put there, no budget, no plan.
No, it's an
nothing.
unfunded mandate in the city. It's an unfunded. It's legislatively it's there, but it's unfunded. So how does that work? Policy says this must be done. We can charge the mayor if we don't have an LDAC. The mayor can be formally charged if we don't have an LDAC and if it's not a functional LDAC. But how do you not align and attach resources and budget for those people sitting there?
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
It's similar to the moral regeneration, which had been formed at a national level. The city tried to revive it under the previous speaker, the moral regeneration, to look at the morals within our country. And also, again, no funds made available to it. So you have a problem, but you're not putting money on it. And then you say, we don't understand why we have so many problems. But you're not dealing with the roots of these issues.
Exactly. You're not coming. Most of your departments are detached. The National Drug Master Plan speaks to 21 government departments that all has a lead role to play in some sector when it comes to substance use disorder.
Including municipalities. And they should be the ones carrying it from a local level.
Municipalities are the closest to the people, the closest to the ward. So municipalities should nominate 8 people from different sectors, from business, from economic, from the faith-based centers, from SAPS, from all of that. 8 people, and they're allowed to co-opt additional. And then the 8, your LDAC on municipality level, then reports and collaborates with your provincial substance abuse forum. And your provincial substance abuse forum then reports to the Central Drug Authority. But that is not happening.
It's disjointed along the way.
There's not even your LDACs. We are still battling now to get SALGA to make it mandatory for all councillors and MMCs to undergo induction when it comes to their role and responsibility to fighting drugs in our country.
You know,
it should be mandatory because that's a policy and the Act states.
As you speak, my friend, like, honestly, like, I have so much respect and love for you because you speak with so much authority, especially in understanding the issues that impact our communities, and drugs is one big part of it. Then we have people who are elected to all sorts of leadership positions or appointed, and they do bugger all, or they have no passion, no understanding. Like, it just blows my mind. Do you think we have good or bad leadership in this country? Do you have faith? You've called on the president, you've called on ministers, you've spoken to them.
I speak to MECs, to MMCs. I mean, we have as a country, I always say we are blessed in terms of having access to people that are the change makers in our country, because in America and other countries that I've visited, you don't have that. The protocols are so strict.
Really, yeah?
You cannot speak to congressmen and, you know, the way we have. They don't come down to people, community level, and address the crowd somewhere here in the community and whatever, and have the MEC showing up for community in Bizo, and we just get to pose questions and we get to point them, you didn't do your job.
Yeah.
We don't in the States, you know, but also, is it to an advantage or disadvantage? That's a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
But I'm saying we have all of these people, we have access to them, but I'm not sure of the political will towards driving and effecting change in a sort of collaborative way. Everyone, what I've seen, this is my portion and I'm only going to build my house. I'm not going to worry about my neighbor, and my slate needs to be clean. There's no synergy and collaboration. And if you are ANC or DA or EFF and I am Action SA, I'm not going to work with you. Yet hijacking and drugs affects all of us. A drug dealer doesn't say, I'm only selling to the ANC. I'm only going to destroy the children of the DA. He sells and his business flourishes because he collaborates. He works with everyone. So imagine if politicians could work with everyone and set aside the need to just have power. But right now, I'm disappointed in what I see in terms of our leaders. There's a great desire for power and not for change.
Yeah, you said a mouthful, my friend. You've said a mouthful.
Yeah.
Ladies and gents, it's been an hour talking to this brilliant, amazing human being. My friend, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate, because you've just given me so much more to think about, to learn. And I think you've just also just encouraged me to continue to talk about this issue, because we can't make one thing. We'll talk about the economy of this country, that jobs are being lost, but we actually don't see that there's also another problem that's making it worse, because now we have a high number of young people who are addicted to drugs, who are not going to be employed,
Absolutely.
who are going to have criminal records.
Absolutely.
And these are 14, 15, 16-year-olds who are going to be, in the next 10 years, 20-something-year-olds who are not going to be employable.
Is the youth really the future of the country? Can we boldly say that?
Yo, what a question.
Is the youth, based on the situation right now, if you look at the youth, is the youth the future of the South Africa? And if we're saying yes, what does that look like?
All right. I think we are done.
Yes.
Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate
thank you,
This has
guys.
been awesome.
Yeah. thank you, guys.
All right. Don't forget to subscribe and like that and share it. And this has been another episode of the Free Ride Podcast with a brilliant guest. We out. Peace out. Bye.